Hi there, Sev here from Three Counties Motorhomes. Welcome to this video guide on how to use a wind-out awning. Now, I've already done a video guide on the Fiamma awnings, which have a eyelet here, and the awning handle, the winder handle, has a little hook. This is for awnings using the Thule winder mechanism here, which is more of a sort of slot, and as you can see here from the winder, we have a T-bar at the end. So this will be for Thule awnings as well as Dometic and maybe some other brands, but this should hopefully fit your awning if you're either one of those two brands, definitely. So what we're going to do is wind the awning out, and I'll explain what you should do, what you shouldn't, some good advice on things to be mindful of as you're doing it, and of course how to be safe. So first thing we're going to do is, if you've got a winder handle, yours may be longer, it may be shorter. Of course, we're on a Volkswagen vehicle today, so it's smaller than a typical motorhome. But you take your winder handle and you turn it into a zigzag so that it can be wound. We then put the T-piece up inside, and just with a little bit of light pressure upwards the whole time, we then wind. And if it doesn't wind one way, then you need to go the other, and the awning will start to come out. Now, on a vehicle like this Volkswagen here has its sliding door very, very close to the awning. So I highly recommend, if your door is open, you can see there's not really much clearance here, and there's a chance the fascia, when it releases from the main casing, could drop slightly, and that could impact the door. So with a Volkswagen, I highly recommend that you make sure the door is closed. And if you have a panel van conversion, similar to what we have next door to us here, any vehicle where there is not much clearance between a door or a window and the awning, I highly recommend you close those first to give yourself clearance. So now I know the door's closed, I'm going to wind out, and what we need to do is we need to wind out just enough so that we can comfortably reach the inside of the casing here, where we will be able to take the legs out and lower them down. And that's going to be about there. That's absolutely fine. What you don't want to do is to wind out too far, because the awning at the moment will be holding its own weight. It will be supporting itself, and without those legs, that's quite a lot of strain. The longer you go out, the more weight and strain there is on it. So to avoid any damage, then just only wind it out enough so that you can get to the inside here. Now, with this style of winder mechanism, we can actually sometimes hold the awning handle inside the mechanism like that. That's done just by rotating it slightly. If yours doesn't and it comes straight out, that's fine, don't worry about it. I'll explain how that winder mechanism works later when we wind the awning back in and we need to get the handle back out. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to the inside of the awning here, and depending on your awning brand, you may see some legs in here. They may be hidden. These ones are just underneath the sort of fascia plate itself. They're just up here. They're held by this little bit of plastic. Now, if I take a leg out, you can see here that the foot is sprung loaded, okay? And the spring is right at the top here. Don't need to drop it down like that. So as you can see, it's sprung loaded right at the very, very top there. So what we're going to do, when we want to get the leg out, we just push against the spring so that it can clear the plastic holder, and then we've got the leg out. Then what I do is I pinch the inside leg just to stop the leg from flying out like it did a moment ago, and get it straight, and then we have the lock and unlock mechanism here. Now, when you lift these up, they will lock. When they're down, they will be unlocked. So what we can do is just lower this down like so, and once it's there, we can then, as you can see, I can move the awning and the leg up or down. I'm just going to take a tiny little bit of weight like this, and then I'm going to lock that in place, so now that won't drop. And I'm going to do the same here on this one here. So I push against the base of the leg, pinch to stop the leg falling out, lower it down, take a little bit of weight or raise it up a tiny bit, and then lock it off. Great, so now the awning is holding its own weight. Now, if I'm doing this myself, I'm going to need to angle these legs out for us to then wind the awning out. Now, if you're doing this with somebody else, of course, one person can look after either both legs as you wind, or look after one end of the awning. Either way, we angle the legs out and then we start to wind. So I'm going to stop there and just explain something. If you take a look at the underside here of the awning, you can see that we've got these support arms, and at the moment they're folded and they are expanding outwards as we wind out. These support arms, they will actually never quite go straight, because once the frame is locked, if the arms lock into a straight position, they won't be able to fold themselves back in. So they need to keep a slight bend. However, as they get straighter and straighter, we're going to notice some differences. So initially, at the moment, the material is sat on these support arms quite clearly. You can see here that the material is sitting on this elbow joint right here. As these arms get straighter and the whole frame gets further and further out, we're going to notice the material will kind of lift off and raise a little bit, and we may even see some daylight above the elbow joint itself. And at that point, we're getting pretty close to the awning's full extension. Now, there's actually more material on the roller for the awning than there is needed for the frame size itself. So what's going to happen is the frame will wind out until it can go no further, but as you're still winding, the frame will stop, but the roller will keep unrolling more material. And what that will do is create a massive sudden sag. And it will be very dramatic. At the moment, it's sagging, but it doesn't look too bad. When it sags at the full extension, you'll see the sides droop and everything. It's quite obvious, but you'll see that in a moment anyway. When that sag happens, you've gone too far and you mustn't roll out anymore. What you're going to then do is to wind back in a little bit just to bring back that tension in all of the material, and you're good to go, and I'll talk you through what happens then. If you do happen to wind out too much and keep winding out the loose material, you may have issues getting it back onto the roller properly, as it needs tension to wind the awning back in, and you could cause problems. So if you do get that sag, don't wind out anymore. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep angling the legs and wind and angle as I go until eventually you've got the awning out. So as we wind, what you're going to see is that material gently tighten up, and you'll see it starts to lift. I might need to angle the legs a little bit more. Bear with me 1 second as I just do the final little adjustment on the legs. We're going to get very close to this fan next door, but we have checked it won't touch. So as you can see right now, the material is tightening, and there is a little bit of a gap here now, just above these elbows. It's only about ½ an inch. Some vehicles or some awnings, it can be a much larger gap, but then all of a sudden, there, that's that big sag. You can see on the sides there, it's all drooped. So just to be clear again, as we're winding out, winding and winding, more and more of a gap above those arms, and in fact, above the elbow joint here now, I've probably got 2 or so inches right at the very last minute, and then it just sags as I wind out anymore. That's us gone too far. So what I do is I just wind back until that tension is back on, and if I want to make sure it's perfectly good, all I do is I just look at the elbow joints here on the arms. If I see them starting to fold back in, then I know I am actually pulling the frame in, so that's about there. Brilliant, we've got the awning out to our full extension. Now, if your awning handle is stuck in here, then you'll need to remove it, and I'll explain that in just a moment. And then this is the point where we do our final adjustment on the legs. We make sure they're straight and we make sure they are at the desired height we want. Now, what we need to be mindful of on a Volkswagen like this is we do have doors such as this. Now, on this particular vehicle, this is a Volkswagen California, and it has its habitation or sliding door here on the driver's side. Yours may be on the passenger side, but either way, if one of your cab doors is very near to the awning here, what you need to be mindful of is A, when you're getting the awning out, just like the sliding door, make sure this door is closed, because this folded up arm may get in the way and scratch your door, so be mindful of that. Also, you need to make sure that when you set these final heights that you do have, if you wish to be able to use the door with the awning out, that you do have full clearance. So don't assume that you don't and just all of a sudden open the door and scrape metal on this. Because of course you'll damage the door. So when you're setting the height, make sure you've got clearance on the door. Now, if you do have an issue where, for example, on this particular vehicle, the door is actually sitting just slightly forward of the arm, but if your arm is maybe, say, here, for example, then you may need to make adjustments. Now, typically that is done by raising this end high enough so that this arm doesn't impede the door anymore. Of course, that's going to create an issue where it's a slope towards the vehicle, so you may find any rain will drain towards the vehicle and it may run off here. The other end will probably be fine, but here, of course, if you did open this door and you end up with rain coming in, then so you might not want to have the door clear anyway. But once you've got to this point and you are setting those final heights, the main ones to make sure of is, of course, that you definitely have clearance for the sliding door, which should be fine, and that you've got some angle at least either this way or that way, so that rain isn't going to sit in the middle. Okay. And rain is absolutely fine with these awnings. As you can see, this is still a little bit wet from where we had it cleaned, and the moisture will just sit on this material. It won't absorb in, but it will sit on there. You can wind it in wet, that's absolutely fine. Just after about a week, it will probably smell, so when you can, get it out at the earliest opportunity and dry it off. Wind, however, is your biggest problem. So please don't get the awning out when it's windy, or if it's forecast to come up. Be mindful of the wind speeds that you are likely to experience when the vehicle's parked and you want to use the awning. Don't leave the vehicle unattended with the awning out, especially again if the forecast is dubious. Don't go to sleep at night with the awning out in the same way. Now you can buy storm kits and other accessories to make these more resilient to wind, but of course there will always be some sort of threshold or limiting factor that you need to be mindful of. So wind is the only thing you need to be mindful of, really. But that's about it. Now, a couple of do's and don'ts. When you're raising and lowering your awning, please don't raise one end entirely on its own, especially if you have a large height adjustment that you need to make, because you could end up twisting the awning and causing it damage. So if you do need to make large height adjustments, stagger the sides in order to keep it as straight as possible throughout the whole operation. Also, do not just let go of these catches and allow the awning to drop. Always make sure you are holding the awning itself, unlock the leg, make any adjustments you need to make, and then relock it off, all while manually holding the awning, and then that way it's not going to drop and damage anything. So that's that. Let's now talk about getting the awning back in, and it's pretty much the reverse of how we extracted it in the first place. So I'm going to angle the legs in this time. I'm going to take the awning handle, pop it in, and I'm going to wind the other way, and it should start compacting like this. Brilliant stuff. Now, at this stage, if you have made quite a large height adjustment at the end here, what you may find is the closer you come in, the awning is getting more and more angled up, and you may need to drop the legs a little bit halfway through the retraction, but most cases you can leave it absolutely fine like so until you get to about here, when we're going to want to pack the legs away. Now, packing the legs away is pretty much the same as we got them out, just in reverse. So we're going to make sure the legs are straight. I'm going to, as I said a moment ago, hold the weight of the awning. I'm going to unlock the awning leg. Okay, so now I am holding the weight of the awning myself, and then I'm going to push up on the leg. There's no need to come down here and grab. You can do it all from just here. Just push up on the locking mechanism like that until it touches up against the spring, at which point I now grab here with my fingers just to stop the leg from dropping out whilst I raise it up. And then we need to make sure the foot is facing outwards like that. Okay, so that's wrong, that's right. And then you can see the plastic retainer just here. I'm going to push the leg against the spring to clear the retainer. Let me just make sure that fascia stays out of the way. And then once it's in place, I let go and it should lock on just like that. Now, here of the end of the leg is what needs to sit against that retainer. Okay, so just like that. And then we come to here and we do the same with this leg. Exactly the same thing. So holding the weight of the awning myself, and now raise the leg up till it hits the spring, pinch, lift it up, put the foot in the right position, and then I push against the spring, line it up and let it go. And that's it all in. Now your fascia plate may move or it may not, but that's absolutely fine. And then we're going to just continue winding in literally until we can't wind anymore. All the way in, that's it. I can't wind anymore. And you can visually have a little look and make sure that it's not, you know, still sticking out at one part or anything like that. And if it is, of course, you might need to have another couple of attempts at it. But it should just sit all nice and flush and we're good to go. And now here comes the tricky bit, getting your awning handle out of the mechanism. So Basically what we have here is a tube in this end of the gearbox here where the winder mechanism goes in, and our awning handle can actually move up and down in that. Now I've wound all the way anti-clockwise this way here, so I'm trying to turn that, and as you can see I can't wind anymore. But if I try and pull the leg out, it can't, because the slot is at this orientation and the awning handle T-bar is going that way. So we need to somehow twist it, but if I turn, it's just going to wind the awning out. So what do we do? Well, all we need to do is just to gently push up like so. And this is very, very gentle. I'm not putting any real force on this. It's just a gentle lift up, then turn, and it should just come out. Okay, so to show you that, we go in, and then we can wind in or out depending on what we want to do. But to get it out, we just need to push up, turn, and come out. Now with this awning handle mechanism, one way will get it locked in, the other way won't. So as you noticed, when we were winding out, which is a clockwise turn, that is exactly the orientation we need, or the direction we need to turn to release the handle. So the handle will actually come straight out from here. But when we wind in, left is the locking position, so now it won't come out. So you'll notice one way it will tend to lock in, one way it will tend to just freely come out. But that's how we release the awning handle. And that's it. That's how we use a Thule style awning, or Dometic is another brand that uses the same winder mechanism and typically has very similar leg setup. Like I say, there may be subtle differences with your awning, but this should cover pretty much 99% of the operation, and all the main do's and don'ts and safety advice still stands as well, regardless of the awning brand you have. So hopefully you found that useful. I'm Sev, and thank you very much for watching.